is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Good morning, our dear guests and audiences, listeners, and viewers everywhere. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we are on another great episode of the program, The Bridge, on US Arab Radio. And today we're going to discuss a very important and timely topic: perspectives on Biden's policies, the domestic and international policies. What are some of the pros and cons? And with me this morning discussing this important and timely topic are Mr. Shahed Amanullah, who is the former senior advisor in the State Department under former President Obama, and Ms. Huwaida Arraf, who is civil rights activist and also a civil rights attorney, activist, and recent candidate in the Congress in the state of Michigan. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to The Bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. So Shahed, I'll start with you actually to talk about a very important moment, which is the 1-year anniversary of the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. It is no secret that this has been a very controversial withdrawal. It raised a lot of issues. Some people were very upset and alarmed at how this happened, the way that it actually took place. So 1 year later, what would be some of your takes on the withdrawal and actually the state or the condition that Afghanistan is in now, 1 year later?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm glad that you're even discussing this. Unfortunately, the Afghan people only come into the news when it's directly related to some the war we've had in Afghanistan and other things. I think it's important, first of all, just keep the Afghan people in mind who have been suffering for not just 20 years, but even longer. 30, 40 years. If you talk to any Afghan family, you're gonna hear stories of trauma, whether it's from the 70s or the 80s or 2000s or now. And so, the Afghans are an incredibly resilient people. They're incredibly resourceful, entrepreneurial. They just want a good life for themselves. And, they have had time and time again, people from outside dictating to them what their life is going to be and bringing harm and destruction in so many different ways. So, when we talk about the 1 year anniversary of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which of course means 1 year under the Taliban, I think we need to keep that in mind, first of all, and try to center the Afghan people. Unfortunately, whenever we talk about what to do about Afghanistan, we think about it in terms of politics or in terms of conflict or terrorism or things like that. But I think it's important now, particularly, to just center the Afghan people and to try to figure out how we can help them as best as we can, regardless of who's ruling them, regardless of all the other circumstances. And it is a challenging situation. I think we need to work to make sure that the Biden administration doesn't keep looking at Afghanistan through the terrorism lens, doesn't keep centering the Taliban, but turn their attention to the Afghan people. And remember that there is, $8 billion of Afghan money. This belongs to the Afghan people that is being denied to them and is being held not just out of the reach of people who've earned that money and put it in banks, but even to try to take money from that for other uses. I think it's criminal. I think that we need to put pressure to make sure that at the very least, we can find creative ways to get that money back to the Afghan people, or at least get it to agencies that can help them, given what they're going through right now.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, the situation is a lot worse now than before, because as you said, under the Taliban, and even some of the little gains, for example, in the sphere of human rights or women's rights, there's also a lot of reversals, if you will, in these spheres of human rights and women's rights. So can we really point fingers of blame at the Biden administration for this withdrawal and actually the aftermath that happened as a result of it?
It's a really tough thing to do, because the war had gone on for 20 years. It had long since passed a point where it was helping the Afghan people. the Taliban had used our presence there and drone strikes and other things to mobilize support for themselves. So we were kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. And so I think rather than talking about how they left, we need to talk about the current needs now and how we can use our leverage in the diplomatic sphere and in other ways to try to help the Afghan people and once again center them. I know it's hard for a lot of people because it seems like every time we touch something in that part of the world, we mess up, whether we have good intentions or not. And I think that it's the easy thing would be to wash our hands of the matter and walk away. But the Afghan people deserve better than that. And we do have people who care. We do have agencies that can do a lot of good work. And we have an Afghan diaspora in America that's also willing to be part of that solution. So I think we just need to start being creative, applying pressure where we can, and help the Afghan people rise above the situation they're in now. They don't deserve the Taliban as their leadership. They deserve better than that. We can exert pressure on the Taliban as well. So there's a lot of different things we can do, but sitting on our hands is not an option.
Absolutely, and also just blaming, is not going to be a solution. I don't like this approach either. So I'm glad that you said, we should be proactive and look at what needs to be done rather than just pointing fingers of blame. That's absolutely a very important point. And Huwaida, since you are a civil rights attorney, I cannot help but ask you about also some of the internal or domestic issues that have been very also controversial on the domestic or the internal sphere in the United States, and also made some people feel like, we need to blame the Biden administration for them. People talk about, the economy has been deteriorating, the prices have been going up, the prices of oil, of course, the prices of gas, everything has been getting more expensive. And we know that there has been the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a very important achievement of the Biden administration. I want to take your own take or comment on this particular point. How much do you think we need to blame or should blame the Biden administration for a lot of these economic hardships? And do you think that this, Inflation Reduction Act would really be some kind of good solution for some of these issues and challenges?
Okay, that's a lot. Thank you, Sahar. First, I just want to underscore what Shahed said about centering the Afghan people, because in the midst of everything that they are going through with the Taliban and the rolling back of rights there, they are in the midst also of starvation crisis. And there are reports of people having to boil grass for food. And, while we're seeing this, the Biden administration is absolutely refusing to release any of the money that belongs to the people. I think in any other context, if it was any other country doing this, it would be genocide. I mean, people are dying and we're holding off the money that could help them survive. So that is very drastic. And I just wanted to underscore that. But let's come domestically. The Inflation Reduction Act, I think, is a significant achievement of the Biden administration. I know it's so easy for many people, myself included, to blame whatever party is in power in terms of the woes that we are living through, and times are difficult for a lot of people. The inflation, which a lot of people are suffering, as a result of, can't so easily be blamed just on President Biden. Whatever you think of him, he is not so, or his policies or the Democrats' policies are not solely to blame for inflation. You had, when Biden took office, we were still in and just trying to come out of a historic pandemic that had us shut down for nearly 2 years. And then, shortly thereafter, we go in, well, not we, but then the war breaks out, Russia invades Ukraine. And then so you have that pushing up the gas prices and the supply chain, the money that went into the economy to help people that were in dire need of help while things were shut down. When things started to open up again, you had supply chain issues, demand that really outpaced the supplies that we had, and so that causes inflation. Things went up, but it's not all under Biden's control, right? But again, so easy to blame the person that's in power. the Inflation Reduction Act addresses a lot of things that should help average everyday Americans, most specifically, I think, with the cost of healthcare, the cost of prescription drugs. As many people know, in the United States, we pay the highest amount for prescription drugs. This Inflation Reduction Act is going to put some caps on that, most notably for insulin, capping that at $35. While I was campaigning, I've talked to some senior citizens who are paying thousands and thousands of dollars more than they could afford on their limited income, just on their copays for their medication. This will cap copays at $2,000 per year. I was talking to people who are paying $6,000, $8,000, and $10,000 a year. And again, these are seniors on limited income. It's also going to bring down those that are get their health care from the Affordable Care Act, bring those prices down, which is going to help people. It's not going to be, of course, immediate, but other steps are also being taken to help people weather crisis. And I don't want to minimize at all what people are, the hardships that people are suffering. But again, this is also a global issue, not just a US issue. And I think that the president has been doing actually a commendable job in trying to deal with it, given the situation that he was handed when he came into power. So I think the Inflation Reduction Act is just one of many things that is going to help everyday Americans. Not going to be immediate, but over the long run, people are going to see those prices come down and more money in their pockets.
I think it's a very important achievement for the Biden administration. There is no question about it that people are going to remember. I think the Biden administration with this very important Inflation Reduction Act, because it's a very impactful, like you said, it really has a big and huge impact on so many different aspects of the American people's lives, in terms of taxes, in terms of medications, in terms of medical care, and so many other things. And let's not forget also climate change. Climate change is a very, very important issue that the Biden administration has always prioritized to a very large extent. If you want to comment quickly also on the aspect related to climate change, Huwaida.
Yes, no, absolutely. It is going to take actually aggressive action to provide families and Americans with incentives and tax cuts to actually be able to upgrade their energy, basically to upgrade their energy. The words are escaping me right now, but people are going to be able to save on their energy bills. It's helping the United States transition and meet our energy goals while helping everyday Americans save on their energy bills right now by becoming more energy efficient. And that is absolutely crucial. And one thing that I forgot to mention, but it is very, very important, is a lot of this is going to be paid for by finally going after the billionaires in this country that do not pay their fair share of taxes. We have a lot of, unfortunately, a billionaire tax cheats, to put it mildly, and instituting kind of a minimum tax on these companies that have been getting away with not paying their fair share of taxes, and also going after those that have been cheating on their taxes. And when that happens, the cost of things come down to, people barely making minimum wage. If most people in those making barely minimum wage are paying their taxes, and then the billionaires in this country are not paying their fair share, that is extremely skewed. And that, leaves us in a situation where you have a government and economy that has historically worked for just the wealthy few, while most people are struggling. And this Inflation Reduction Act attempts to even things out a little bit.
I totally agree. Yes, Shahed.
Oh, no, I'd like to, first of all, Huwaida is spot on in terms of what this has done. And I think, and Huwaida knows this really well, it is extremely difficult to get legislation like this through the system. I think this is one thing that you see in the Biden administration. There's a constant effort to get these things through the system. And it's one thing if you have an opposition that's against you. It's another thing even if you have people within your own party that are spoilers. So to be able to get legislation through like that is a real achievement. I want to highlight one particular person who has really helped make all this happen, starting back in the back with the $1 trillion a bill that was helping after COVID. Up till now, a Palestinian American woman named Rima Dodine, who is the deputy director of the Office of Legislative Affairs at the White House, she has really been one of the key people responsible for pushing these bills through on behalf of the Biden administration. And I wanted to underscore that there are talented people like this who have worked their way into the system and have used their talent for the benefit of all Americans. And as they come from our communities, I think we should definitely be proud of that.
Absolutely. These are very important points. Thank you both so much. We'll come back to this very important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Yeah, you know, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want.
5-year-old Lila and her mom are on their way home from Grandma's, singing Lila's favorite song. A few blocks away, 25-year-old Dylan is visiting friends at a small party. He finishes off his last beer,
later, skater,
gets in his truck, and starts for home. Mom and Lila turn onto Maple Street. So does Dylan.
If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray, hooray!
Every 50 minutes in the United States, someone dies in a crash involving a driver impaired by alcohol or drugs. If you're impaired and you know it, don't drive. Drive sober. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain. Enjoy the first Syrian-style cuisine in Michigan. At Damas Cuisine and Catering, you'll find a wide selection of Syrian foods and sweets in our menu, like frike, hoisin, grape leaves with steak, mishawi platter, hot mahashi, char-grilled kebab, shawarma, and much more. Get super fast delivery from Damas Cuisine and Catering right to your door. Order online at damascuisine.com/menu and track your order live. Damas Cuisine and Catering, 28841 Orchard Lake Road in Farmington Hills. Call 248-987-4985.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're talking today about a very important and timely topic, perspectives on the Biden administration's internal and domestic policies, the pros and cons. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are Mr. Shahed Amanullah and also Ms. Huwaida Arraf. Shahed, if you want to talk about the internal or international or the external policies and the international policies related to the Biden administration, we also cannot skip or avoid talking about the crisis in Ukraine. Definitely, this is a crisis which had massive political and economic and social impacts internationally. It had impacts on the United States as well as on other countries, obviously, in terms of the economies, in terms of the prices of gas, inflation, and many, many other issues. Again, some people are seeing this as a very controversial issue, and they are pointing fingers of blame at Biden and the Biden administration, saying, maybe he did not handle the Ukraine crisis in the best way possible. Maybe he had or should have had other ways of handling it in a much better way. What is your take on that, or some of your own opinions or perspectives on this particular point?
Oh, sure. No, it's always, these are the most difficult questions that can be handled by any administration. And we've seen obviously bad decisions being made in the past, and we've seen positive decisions being made. This is one of those cases where I think by and large, the reaction has been positive, because when we allow unchecked aggression like you have in Russia, then it opens the door for more and more of that to happen. And there's a balance that the Biden administration is doing in supporting the Ukrainians' right to defend themselves, but not getting directly involved. This country has been through 20 years of being pulled into military adventurism overseas, and there's very little patience for something like that to happen again. But it doesn't mean that we sit still. The Ukrainian people are more than willing to fight for their own country. And it's not just that the US has helped give them the equipment that they need to turn the tide, but has actually helped to marshal resources among Europeans and others to do the same. And I think what you have now is you have a line in sand that's been drawn by the Ukrainians in their own country with their own men and women. And Putin and the Russian regime is learning that you cannot just use unchecked violence against your neighbors. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who think like I do, that I wish this was something that was universally believed wherever it happens. And I honestly wish that was the case. I mean, we have everything from Palestine to Syria to Yemen to all these different things. But it doesn't negate the fact that when it does happen, we still have to support it. And we can use that as an example in other places as well, to support the right of people to be free from violence inflicted from beyond. And now you have on top of this the prospect of Taiwan. And what are we doing? We are taking a standing next to Taiwan and saying that we're going to defend their sovereignty. Now, does that worry me? Of course it does. Nobody wants to get into a conflict with China. Nobody wants to get into a conflict with Russia. But again, it's that balancing act. How do you apply American force in such a way that it holds the line so that aggressive nations are in check, and that people who want to be free on their own land are able to defend themselves? Again, I wish that was a universal principle. I wish it was universally applied. But in these two cases, I think we did the right thing.
Just to add to that a little bit, Biden actually ran on, one of his platforms was putting human rights at the center of US foreign policy. And that is far from being completed. We may be on the right side, of course, when it comes to supporting the Ukrainian people and supporting Taiwanese independence, etc. But in these other places that Shahed mentioned, just to name a few, we're absolutely on the wrong side, consistently supporting the oppressor, either by just turning a blind eye, paying lip service to the human rights of the people in these various countries where we do business and sell billions of dollars worth of weapons to dictators, or actively supporting and underwriting aggressive criminal policies like with the Israeli regime and its colonization, occupation, and apartheid in Palestine. And so it is extremely frustrating because you see a lot of duplicity and hypocrisy. And even though, like Shahed said, we are on the right side when it comes to, Ukraine, it's not for, the morality of it that we're doing it. If we were, we'd be the first ones out there defending Palestinian rights to freedom and independence. And instead of doing that, we're constantly protecting Israel and then shipping $4 billion of US taxpayer money to the Israeli military that uses it to commit war crimes. So it's absolutely frustrating. We need to continue to push, obviously, applaud the administration when it does something right, but continue to point out and to organize and speak out when we are not living up to our rhetoric.
And that has been one of the
Absolutely.
Yeah, that has been one of the criticisms also to the Biden administration, some of these double standards and even not prioritizing the Palestinian issue enough, even during his Middle East tour, right? The Middle East tour, there were so many issues raised, but it seemed very clear that the Palestinian issue was somehow pushed to the back burner or somehow pushed to the very bottom of the agenda. And that was another criticism that the Biden administration actually received for this particular issue.
Yeah, the U.S. government has, went to Israel, and you saw the fist bumps and all of the nice things being said, and you had still a situation where the United States has done nothing about the killing of a Palestinian American journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh. All but ignored. It paid lip service, did the customary visit with her family, but in terms of pushing Israel, condemning Israel even, conducting an independent investigation, none of that. And this is an American citizen, and that's not anything new. I was part of an organization, the International Solidarity Movement, and back in 2003, an American citizen who wasn't even Palestinian, 23-year-old Rachel Corrie, was run over by an Israeli bulldozer, we believe deliberately, and the US still has not conducted an investigation or done anything for Rachel Corrie's family that lives here in Washington state. And this is American citizens, and there are many more. I just named two right there that have been harmed or lost their lives to Israel. But what if the thousands and tens of thousands of Palestinians? And again, so we get back to this kind of human rights issue. And that was Israel. Then Biden went to and pretended to take a tough stance on Saudi Arabia, but just only a couple of weeks after he left Saudi Arabia, in which President Biden claimed that he talked and was tough on the human rights issues of the kingdom. But just a few days ago, a young mother, Salma al-Shihab, was sentenced to 34 years in prison for some tweets. She is a mother of two, a university student in the UK, just visiting in Saudi Arabia, and was prosecuted. And so a 34-year sentence for tweets. These kinds of visits by Biden, in which no strong action is taken on human rights issues, just emboldens these leaders in these countries to continue doing what they're doing and oppressing the people, because they know that they will face no repercussions for it whatsoever.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with all that you mentioned right now. And even as a professor of communication, I would add that even the media coverage in so many cases is oftentimes skewed. Right. So you saw all of this, oh, what are you doing, beautiful lady? Oh, I am grandma and I am really putting together a cocktail Molotov. Right. So can you imagine, for example, if a woman wearing the hijab like me comes on social media, what are you doing? Oh, I'm putting together a cocktail Molotov. Of course, it's going to have a completely different type of connotation, and it's going to be associated with terrorism and violence, So definitely every nation and every people have the right to defend themselves. And these double standards are something that has really brought a criticism to the Biden administration and its policies for sure. Shahed, back to you, because you mentioned Taiwan, and that was actually one of the issues I also wanted to raise, because also the controversial Nancy Pelosi, visit and everything that went after that, and all the, the aftermath of the visit and the escalation from the side of, China, and the threats and the blames, all of that stuff. Do you think that this kind of policy or this kind of visit or this kind of action was something that actually deliberately created some kind of unnecessary provocation, let's say, for the Chinese, and therefore might actually endanger the Chinese-American relationship? Or do you think it actually sends a legitimate message to China when it comes to this sensitive issue?
No, I think you have to keep in mind that before Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, there is a constant drumbeat of provocations from the Chinese in the Straits of Taiwan, in and around the area, trying to project their power, trying to project their, continually saying that their intention is to take over Taiwan at some point, even to going so far as to say that they're willing to do it with force. You cannot allow people to say that and not have some kind of response. I think what she did was the bare minimum, was just that this will not go unnoticed. And since she's gone, multiple other people have gone as well, even from other countries as well. So there's at least a unified front there. But again, we need to. We live in a new world now where power is not just centered in governments. That people have power in themselves. People have the power to project their voices on social media, to be able to highlight things that are happening. We see videos all the time from Palestine where people are documenting things for people to know. And just imagine what it was like before cell phones, right? So the people have the power to change the course of history in all of these cases. We cannot just leave it to governments. We cannot just leave it to the Biden administration. We cannot trust these other governments as well. We need to project our voices out there in as forceful a manner as possible. And it's easy to be disillusioned. I thought that the Trump years were going to be the worst for Palestine, and I feel like it's just gotten even worse now. Not necessarily because the Biden administration is wanting it to, but out of, I would say, neglect. Just allowing it to metastasize and allowing it to get worse. But we need to put pressure on all of the players. The dishonesty of the Gulf countries that are climbing all over the Palestinians to establish relations with Israel and overlooking, the one thing that matters, that none of that should be happening without the consent of the Palestinians, and to just overlook that, I think is criminal. So we have to put the pressure on all these different fronts. What Huwaida mentioned about the woman that got arrested. This is a common thing in those countries, and it's a common thing in Saudi. And people will focus on, there's certain social changes that have been made. All this proves is that authoritarian regimes they're gonna be authoritarian, and unless you call that out and call for change, it's never going to change. So I do encourage people to speak out and to continue to be involved and continue to pressure this administration and other administrations. And this is if we don't do this, this is why China feels empowered to do what it does. This is why Russia feels empowered to do what it does. Russia has learned a very strong lesson in the last 6 months that they thought that within 3 days they would have captured an entire country and that no one would care. Now they know the truth. Now they know that now can we take that same force and apply it in all of the cases around the world that deserve that kind of attention? That's the challenge that we all have.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. We'll come back to this very important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Imagine you're on a train track. Somewhere miles away, a train is headed your way. You can't see it yet, but it's coming. Slowly but surely. If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may be on the wrong track, and diabetes could be heading your way. Bit by bit, the danger is getting closer and closer. So should you stay on the track you're on now or move to make a change and reduce your risk? If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may qualify for the National Diabetes Prevention Program in your local community. This one-year program could be the ongoing support you need to put you on the right track. Not only did participants lose weight, they cut their risk of type 2 diabetes in half. Ready to get on board for a healthier future? Learn more about the National Diabetes Prevention Program and what else you can do to manage and prevent diabetes at michigan.gov/diabetes. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Are your hands feeling numb? Do you feel pain opening up a jar, turning a key? Are you noticing that your elbow and your shoulder are becoming stiff? Or were you recently injured in your arm? Hello, I'm Dr. Albanjit Katranji, and at the Katranji Hand Center, which just recently opened down the street from the Somerset Mall, we can provide you with the latest in hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder care. Visit us at www.katranjihandcenter.com to learn the latest techniques that we have to offer you, and I look forward to taking care of you.
Visit us in Troy at 1565 West Big Beaver Road, Building F, or call Katranji Hand Center for an appointment at 248-869-4263. That's 248-869-4263.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248 299-3937.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're today talking about a very important and timely topic, perspectives on the Biden administration's international and domestic policies, the pros and cons. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are Mr. Shahed Amanullah and Ms. Huwaida Arraf. Huwaida, you are a civil rights attorney and an activist, and you actually ran for Congress. I really want to ask you a very important question about women's reproductive rights. We all know that the Supreme Court has unfortunately, reversed or repealed the Roe versus Wade, and that had a huge, of course, impact or effect on women's reproductive rights. Have you seen enough reaction from women's groups and activist groups in the U.S. towards this issue, or do you think that some more work should have been done and should actually continue to be done in the months and the years to come? And if so, what really needs to be done?
Yes, thank you for bringing this up, because it is the reversal of Roe v. Wade was and is detrimental to women all across this country, because it basically stripped people and women specifically of the right to control their own bodies, to decide, what happens to their bodies. And this has far-reaching implications. Now, many people, Republicans specifically, have tried to say that all the reversal of Roe v. Wade was give the issue back, or turn the issue over to the states, that states should decide, each state for itself, what the policy is in that state. And this is absolutely rejected. The United States is one country where we have at least minimum set of laws that protect everybody in this country. It cannot be a situation where in one state you can have the right to decide what happens to your body, and then in another state, from the moment a woman is impregnated, she loses control of her whole body, and that there are no exceptions whatsoever. And we are seeing this happen in states. There is tremendous amount of fear. There have been medical repercussions. There have been cases where women have had miscarriages and doctors have been unable to treat them because cleaning them out might run afoul of the state's anti-abortion laws. This can severely impacted women physically, psychologically, and we have to get back to a situation where we have these minimum protections across all states. And that's really what Roe v. Wade does. Some people have asked me, well, they've said, I don't agree with having an abortion at 9 months. That's not what Roe v. Wade did. What it did was balance between the health and autonomy of a woman and the state's right to also protect the life of a fetus by saying, splitting the pregnancy into 3 trimesters. The first trimester, a person can have an abortion if they need for whatever reason. The second trimester, they could also have an abortion, but states can regulate certain aspects of it. The third trimester, after 24 weeks, only if it's to save, the health, if it's the life of the mother is at risk. And that was a balance, and that was a minimum across all states. Now you have states completely banning it and threatening providers and the women and girls themselves with years in prison should they suspect that they are attempting to have an abortion. And again, the repercussions are far reaching. We don't have time to get into all of it, but in terms of what can be done about it, has it galvanized people? It certainly has. In this state, for example, where I am in Michigan, people mobilized and within a few months gathered over 750,000 signatures on a petition in order to put this question on the ballot in November. So it's a ballot initiative. The question will be put on the ballot in November. Should reproductive rights be enshrined in the Michigan Constitution? We expect it to pass, and hopefully Michigan will be a safe state, but it's not just enough for Michigan to be a safe state. And I know that there are other initiatives in other states, but we also need to continue mobilizing on a federal level. And when it comes to Congress and the administration, there is the Women's Health Protection Act, which passed the House of Representatives, but it was stalled in the Senate because of the filibuster. And so we still have to push and work on that. And the mobilization and the raising of voices that Shahed talked about is exactly what we need to be doing here. I think it's happening. I think this is also an issue that is going to be sending a lot more people to the polls to vote, not for Republicans this November. So it's detrimental what was done. Hopefully we will we will not rest until it is reversed, because it is people's lives that we are talking about here.
There is a saying that squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So if you keep squeaking and raising the issue and shouting and screaming and talking, somebody is hopefully going to listen to you at some point. Shahed?
Yeah, no, there's another aspect to this beyond what Huwaida has mentioned, which is this is about control. And already the people who have pushed this have brought up multiple other ways in which they want to control people, in that they want to repeal other existing statutes that protect, interracial marriage, gay marriage, things like that. The whole idea of privacy is now thrown out the window. These people now are using this as an excuse to be able to get into your phone, to investigate you, to try to see if you've committed a crime. These are far-reaching implications. And if we care about our privacy, we need to address all of these, but starting with this issue. And I have to say, I'm very heartened by the vote that happened in Kansas. A state that was resolutely pro-Trump voted overwhelmingly to not modify the state constitution, which allows for protections for abortion. And I hope what that signals is that even in red states, that there's a majority of people, which the polls show, that are against this kind of overreach and want something consistent across the states so that we don't have to second guess our legal status every time we cross the state line. And again, it goes beyond abortion. There's multiple different aspects where you could be married in one state and not married in another, things that seemed unimaginable even 6 months ago.
Absolutely. It seems from your answers, both of you, that the human rights are very much at the heart of many of the issues and challenges we're talking about here, whether in the domestic sphere or the international sphere. Human rights issues are very much at the center. Huwaida?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add what's happening here is with the court that we have here. And if anyone read any part of the decision the Doe decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, I mean, it was basically a religious political manifesto kind of masquerading as a legal decision. And that is scary because it is the implementation of something that has long been in process by the religious right in this country to impose their will on the country as a whole. I mean, there is a reason here that we have separation of church and state, and it is what allows the respect for all people, all religions here. Of course, we still have social discrimination, and I don't mean to minimize some of the systemic problems we have in this country, but the separation of church and state is paramount. And when you start to blur those lines, and when you start applying your religious belief to legal decisions, we have a violation of the First Amendment in this country. So it's a constitutional violation, but also points to kind of a movement of the right that's taken this country down a very, very dangerous road. And we have to speak up and we have to mobilize. It is basically the kind of democracy of this country at stake.
Absolutely. I think mobilization, action, organization, activism are indeed what is needed here to tackle many of these issues. Shahed, you actually served as a former senior advisor in the State Department under the Obama administration. So I cannot help but ask you the question, do you think that President Obama, if he was in office, he would have taken a different approach? Some of these issues related to, for example, the withdrawal from Afghanistan or the Ukraine crisis or the issue about Taiwan or any of the other topics that we have been talking about. Do you think he would have taken a different approach from Biden?
I'm not so sure. One of the most frustrating parts about serving in the Obama administration was that in the wake of the Iraq War, which admirably he pushed to get our troops out of, there was an unwillingness to take action with respect to Syria. And the rationale that was throughout the State Department at the time was, we just got out of Iraq, we don't want to, meddle anymore. But that was one of those cases where, we were starting to draw lines in the sand with Assad. And, unlike what's happening with Ukraine, we didn't reinforce that. And then we've seen now all the suffering that's happened in Syria because he felt like he could do whatever he wanted. And so, this is what we have to balance, and I think that there are people that mean well when they come into office. I think Biden means well. I think Obama meant well, but it's not just up to them. There are other players involved. There's politics, there's inertia, there's all these different aspects. And I think at the end of the day, it has to come down to us. We cannot put our faith in any political leader. We need to be able to take the lead on these and let them follow our lead. But that requires us to have that confidence and that ability to project that out and say, this is what has to happen. You need to follow our lead, and we're going to watch you. So that's what I hope. We're seeing this with the Dobbs decision. We're seeing this with a lot of things. People are waking up. We're seeing this with the gun violence, where people are just not tolerating anymore. I hope that continues. I hope people remain vigilant on all of these issues, whether domestic or international, and start leading the leaders.
I really like that, leading the leaders. That's a very good point. Thank you. We'll come back to this important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
اجتماع العائلة في الأعياد، حفلة تخرج، قلبي وأفراح وهنا، وحفلة عرس. مباراة كرة سلة. بفضل لقاح كوفيد-19 يمكننا أن نجتمع مرة أخرى ونتشارك اللحظات الجميلة مع أحبابنا دون قلق أو خوف من العدوى. لتظل هذه الاجتماعات عامرة لنحمي أنفسنا وأحبابنا ولنحرص على تلقي أحدث جرعة من اللقاح. لمعلومات أكثر عن اللقاح تفضلوا بزيارة موقع michigan.gov/COVID-vaccine. رسالة من وزارة الصحة والخدمات الإنسانية في ميشيغان.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552. And the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're discussing today a very important and timely topic, different perceptions and perspectives on the Biden administration's domestic and international policy, the pros and cons. And with me this morning discussing this important topic, Mr. Shahed Amanullah and Ms. Huwaida Arraf. Huwaida, also a very important point is the midterm elections are around the corner, right? Do you think that the Democratic Party is ready to actually run into this race with a strong presence and to actually be able to achieve some kind of victory? Or do you think there are certain hitches or glitches and things that they really have to kind of pay attention to in order to secure victory in the upcoming midterm elections?
Well, look, I think that historically, the party that's in power loses seats in an off year, right? Election year. And that's kind of what's been expected here. But I don't think that it needs to be that. I think when you look at, especially over the last few months, Biden and the Democrats have had a number of legislative wins, which we need to be highlighted more, the impact on Americans. We talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. There's also the Safer Communities Act, which was historic. It was a bipartisan bill. It broke basically a 30-year hiatus in gun safety legislation. We had the CHIPS Act, which I have my criticisms about, but it brings a lot of the manufacturing back to the United States. And movement on protection and increased healthcare for veterans and more. And so this is a number of legislative wins. That's not even to mention the infrastructure bill that passed last year, which is investing in building up our communities, our roads, and everything like that. And so with such a tight, especially in the Senate, a 50-50 split Senate, with sometimes some senators not actually working with the Democrats and sometimes working against them, to be able to pass this, this kind of legislation is significant. I think the Democrats need to play that up. They really need to stress what will happen if more Republicans come into power, Republicans that what we were just talking about, women's reproductive health care. You have, for example, in Michigan, the person running for governor in Michigan has said that She's absolutely against abortion, no exceptions for rape and incest, no exceptions for the health of the mother, and many more Republicans across the country running on similar platforms that is a matter of life and death for so many people across this country. So I think we need to be strong on that. It's not going to be easy, but I think that we can pull off a number of wins this November.
In 1 minute, Huwaida, you ran for Congress before. Would you be willing or planning to run for Congress again? And if so, why?
Yes, actually, my primary was only a few weeks ago, and it did not go the way that we had wanted it to go. But it was very, very difficult. But I think that we made a lot of progress in a historically a conservative area. I ran on a progressive platform, and something that set me apart from many, many other people is I did not try to hide my history of activism on human rights issues internationally and domestically, and specifically on Palestine. Some people like to whitewash or to talk about just peace. No, I clearly talked about that. The United States support for Israel policy is, and what Israel's doing is criminal, and we have to change our policy. And I merge that message into what we need to do here to uplift working people and oppressed people, because human rights, as we've said throughout this program, is everybody deserves basic rights. And people here, their struggles may be different, but not so different from people across the world that are suffering also from brutal policies. And therefore, I would do it again. I think we need many more people also stepping up to run for office, maybe not for Congress, but for all levels, definitely.
Well, we certainly wish you best of luck in the next round, and we hope to see you in Congress. That would be really amazing.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, absolutely. And Shahed, finally, if you were to actually be an advisor, now a senior advisor for the Biden administration, what would be some of the tips or some of the advice that you would give President Biden and his administration in terms of some of the international policies, or changing or tweaking maybe some of the international, or maybe also some of the domestic? If you want to comment on that just in a couple of minutes, please.
Well, I want to follow Huwaida's lead. And by the way, it's just an honor to be here with you, longtime observer of all the work you've been doing. And I'm just proud of you. I would tell the administration, and I have through the people that I know are in the administration, that people are watching, people are holding you to account with respect to human rights, whether it's locally or abroad, and that if you want to secure a future for Democrats in power, you have to follow the lead of people who are holding you to account on all of these things. The preferred way to act is the way in which benefits people who are oppressed, people who are disadvantaged. This is how Democrats differentiate themselves from Republicans. So if that's the case, then you have to mean it in everything you do. Any policy that you look at, you have to ask who's suffering, who's not suffering. Let's center the people who are suffering and do what we can to alleviate that suffering. That simple principle applied broadly will make this party win every future election, because people resonate with that. People resonate with action. And I think all of the legislative successes will do a lot of good in the future. But then, I look at things like Laura Loomer losing her primary by only 5,000 votes. You would have had this Islamophobe in Congress. We're always that close to something bad happening, and so we just have to be vigilant. And so that's what I would say, make a stand against this hate that's in our society, and make a stand against forces, wherever they are, that want to oppress people. I mean, it's that simple.
That's a beautiful way to end the program. Huwaida, you have something to say in very...
Yeah, no, I was just going to support that and say the new also generation and the younger are so about this message. And where we lose a lot of them is when they see the hypocrisy. And so we, as a party, the Democratic Party, needs to do better to live up to the policy, again, living up to the rhetoric, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk.
Absolutely, absolutely. Really being role models for the future generations, and also encouraging the young people and the future generations to take action, to organize, to mobilize, and to actually play a very important part in politics, because at the end of the day, it's their future and they have to really be engaged in it. I would love to continue this discussion for another hour, but unfortunately, we came to the end of our times. I would like to very much thank you, Shahed Amanullah, and also Huwaida Arraf, for being our guests today on The Bridge on US Arab Radio. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And thanks to all our listeners and viewers everywhere. Thank you, take care, and stay blessed. Goodbye.